Hey everybody, it's Faiz Versey and welcome. I'm a real estate salesperson with LePage in Ottawa, and firstly, I would just like to start off by saying my huge condolences to anybody who may have lost a loved one to the coronavirus problem. It's a huge problem, it's a global problem, and really it's a terrible situation. My sympathies as well with the people who are having to self-isolate or are in some way affected by this virus. So I pray to God that this problem goes away quickly and we can get back to some kind of a normal life. So today, folks, the reason I am speaking with you is that my expertise is in real estate, and I just get a sense when I talk to people that there's a lot of anxiety out there, not just in respect of coronavirus, because that's a huge problem, but there's also a lot of knock-on effects that we are now experiencing, and people are concerned, like what's going on. So I just wanted to shoot this video out. As I said, my expertise is real estate. I've been doing a lot of reading and I've watched other podcasts and videos and spoken to people in the real estate industry, and perhaps I can offer you with some idea of where we are and what lies ahead. Just an approximation. Nobody knows for sure right now what's going on. So, but we do have a little bit more clarity this week, perhaps. Well, I wouldn't say this week, today, as of today. So whatever I'm discussing is as of my knowledge, as of today, March the 20th of 2020. And so I will try to synthesize everything that I know and give that information to you. And don't hold me to it, because this is a fluid situation. It's going to keep changing, but this is what I see as of this point in time. So what I've done is I've drawn a chart. I'm going to go to that chart now and let's take a look at that. So I've drawn a chart because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in this chart, I'm going to make an effort to depict what may lay ahead. And to predict, but remember, I don't know exactly how the future is going to work out, so we'll see, because that's all in God's hands, and we will see how all of this works out. But in respect of some of the elements of the economy and then real estate, let me just address some of those issues. So what I've done in this chart is I have referred to an item here called GDP, Gross Domestic Product, on this axis, which is simply talking about economic activity, the level of economic activity in an economy. And on this axis, I talk about time. Time is just the time frame. So what am I saying in this graph here? And this graph could depict what may be the case for Canada, maybe even for the US. I don't know what other global economies around the world. But like I said earlier, that we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, especially now that China seems to have overcome this problem, or at least reduced the growth of this coronavirus in its huge economy and its huge mandate. As well, South Korea. In fact, I believe South Korea is now has restarted their basketball league and is actually inviting Americans to come over and join that, American players to come over and join that league. So that's all great news. And based on that, let's hope things like that can work out for the rest of the world. But the rest of the world still has to figure how to accomplish what China and South Korea seem to already have accomplished on the positive front. So here we go. This chart is saying that, let's say here, at this point in time, if this is February of 2020, which in my knowledge approximately is when the WHO declared the coronavirus to be a pandemic, a global pandemic. So if that was the start of that, and then now we're in this phase where we are told to stay at home, like I'm in my home right now, and we are told to be social distancing. So everybody out there, it's quiet. There's not many people out there, at least here in Ottawa. My wife went out yesterday to do some emergency or urgent shopping, and she came back and told me that almost everything's closed, just perhaps the grocery shops are open. So we're now experiencing the economic knock-on effects. So we had the coronavirus problem, and now we've got the economic knock-on effects, which are now in some X of that. So in other words, people are being affected not just by the coronavirus. Unfortunately, people are succumbing to that health-wise, but people are also probably going to succumb to the economic side, because that is now a knock-on effect. And if coronavirus is 1x, I would say you can add 3 or 4x to that for the economic effects, and then we have a total of 4 to 5x problem that is currently germinating in the world. So what we have now is, what we can see now, let's say from this month of March, we are seeing this economic downturn because we are all inside our homes, and so we have this global quarantine, this economic quarantine that's happening, and so the economic activity is falling rapidly. And if that happens in Canada, we're going to enter a recession, possibly in Q1. Q1 meaning this month, January, February, March, so this month. And if that happens, it may continue to Q2, it may even go longer. So in my graph here, I'm estimating this point probably down here is somewhere in the range of August, which would make it into Q3. Now this is on the assumption, this is a huge point, I missed this, let me just explain it, let me just mention it now. This is on the assumption that the world is able to bring coronavirus under control in the next few months. And again, that's based on the light that we are seeing, based on what we have seen happening in China and South Korea. If the rest of the world can catch up and control the growth of this virus within the next few months, then this is a potential scenario. And if that doesn't happen, well, all bets off. In fact, all bets are off anyways. This is just a basic framework, some kind of guideline for you, some kind of roadmap that shows you what may lie ahead, but don't hold me to any of this. So if we're able to control the coronavirus over the next few months, then possibly by Q3 in Canada, we may start bottoming out in the recession. That may be somewhere in the months of August. So let's say August, September, October, November, the next 3 months, we are still bottoming out. And let's say by December, we start recovering. Now, the recovery should be very sharp and large because really the economy right now is just fine. It was just fine just before we got into this economic downturn that was caused by the coronavirus. So the economy is very strong, and therefore we should rebound very quickly and in quite a large significant figure. So that's why I've got this line going pretty much at a good angle. And so if we start this recovery sometime in December, maybe by January we've recovered pretty significantly. Not all the way, but pretty significantly. And then from there it'll take its time. I'm thinking if this works out the way I've projected over here, then by let's say next July. By next July, we should be pretty much level with where we were at the start of this crisis back in February. And then from there, we carry on. We'll see whatever the circumstances are at that time. But probably the economy will just carry on its trajectory from there. So that's what I would project on the economic side for Canada. Maybe the same for the USA. On the residential housing market, property market, I don't see too much negative effect because we have this huge imbalance of demand up here. I don't know if the camera can catch this. Demand up here, supply down here. So there's just too much demand and it's growing. So I don't see a huge negative impact in property prices going forward. That's why I've got the squiggly line. I don't really know how this will work out. Right now, the property market is still continuing. It hasn't gone down to zero. It hasn't frozen completely. And as we start to come out of this lockdown that we're in, this curfew or this social distancing, then the economic activity will carry on. But I don't see prices taking a hit because simply that the demand situation is ridiculous and growing. So I see residential probably just puttering around to where it is, and then when we start getting out of this economic issue, then hopefully, not hopefully, this is what I'm estimating, I don't know exactly, then the property prices may start rising again. Now that's residential property. Commercial property probably will follow the curve of the economy, so it may decline for a while and then come back as well. So folks, that's what I have in respect of my understanding for what may happen going forward. I hope you found this useful. So my friends, again, this is just numbers and economics and money, and which is all important because look, people, if money is important, because the phrase is that you can't help the poor if you are one of them. So Canada is able to help the population, able to help us get through these downturns because there is some money in the till. So money ultimately is important, and that's why I'm bringing this topic out. And yes, my heart is with the people who are presently under the problems physically that coronavirus is facing, is creating. I myself, thankfully, am well, and so maybe I would be in a different frame of mind if I too were sick. But at least I hope this adds a different angle to the whole problem that, look, folks, we're not going to be in too bad a situation in the economic terms, in the property market terms, if we're able to contain this virus. And I'll end on this note that, look, folks, the thing is that let's be positive. I know people are depressed out there. I do talk to people and they say they're depressed, and that's natural. That we're human beings, we're supposed to get affected by all these things. But the issue is that we're not seeing anything new. Everything that's happening in the world today, we've already seen it before. The world has been around for 10,000 years, or at least human beings. The world has been around for longer than that. Every problem that we are seeing in the world today has already happened. Every problem bad that's happening to you today has already happened to somebody else. I'm saying this to give you a positive outlook so that you can learn that other people have gone through these problems. Maybe talk to somebody, maybe read a book, maybe read an article. How did somebody else handle this problem? Because God willing, we all come out of this. Ultimately, we don't know. Will I be here next time talking to you? I don't know. That's all in God's hands. But I do pray that all of us get through this as best as we can, me and my family, you and your family. And I hope that all works out well. And the people who have to cope with the problems, could be me, could be you, could be anybody. Let's hope we can cope with them to the best of our ability. So my friends, until I see you again, be safe. I will try to be safe myself, and I hope so everything works out well, and then we'll talk again in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.